Hello and welcome. My name is Flutus Poston, and I'll be discussing how to protect your business from cyber threats. It's a critical concern that each and every one of us face today. As organizations have moved more of their operations to the cloud, a robust security strategy is essential for safeguarding your digital assets. I'll explore the share responsibility model in cloud security, a framework that outlines the security duties shared between cloud providers and you, the cloud user. I'll help you understand how this partnership approach is key to ensuring comprehensive protection for your organization. So now let's introduce a few topics that's going to be important as we dive deeper into this presentation. The first is the fundamental business pillar. Each and every one of us have a key business model that we operate in. So security has to evolve from an IT point of view to meet and help us survive in the arenas in which we work, to make sure that we are not impacting operations, our reputation, and ultimately the bottom line of our organization. Next, the cloud migration impact. As organizations transition to the cloud or continue to grow out their cloud environment, security becomes more complex and vital to your organization. Thus, we need to have a strong shared responsibility model. The shared responsibility model provides a structure approach to help you and I understand while implementing effective security measures. With cyber threats evolving daily, businesses such as yours and mine must adapt a proactive stance towards protection, particularly when leveraging cloud services that introduce new security dynamics. So as you're building out your cloud environment, make sure that you're properly securing, and this is not the same that you secured your data centers, your on-prem environment, and we'll discuss more of that as we go deeper into this presentation. So Felicia, you're going to talk about shared responsibility, but what is the essence of the shared responsibility model? Well, the essence of the shared responsibility model in cloud security is that it operates similar to a property management. So hang with me here. I'm going to use an analogy that will help you understand just a little bit more about what is and is not the shared responsibility model within inside of cloud security. So just as property managers maintain the building and common areas, cloud providers secure the underlying infrastructure. Meanwhile, the tenants or users are responsible for securing their own data and applications, just as tenants are responsible for maintaining their individual units. So think about this for a moment if you live in an apartment or if you live in a condominium or a duplex. You're responsible for what's inside the four walls of your apartment or condo or duplex, where the property management company is responsible for the structure itself, the plumbing that comes in, the heating, the HVAC. If there's a yard, they're maintaining it. This is how it helps you understand the difference between what your responsibility is versus what the cloud's responsibility is. So now let's talk about the division of the security responsibilities within inside of cloud security. There are clear boundaries, which helps eliminate the ambiguity about who is responsible for what. When responsibilities are clearly defined, security gaps are less likely to occur, preventing, I thought you were handling that, Fleetus. This partnership approach ensures that every aspect of cloud security is addressed, providing comprehensive protection for the business as well as what is the responsibility of the cloud security provider. So now we're going to walk through what your cloud provider handles versus what you handle. So let's start off with cloud providers have made massive investments in advanced security measures to protect their infrastructure. This includes threat detection, rapid response protocols, and compliance that meet global security standards. Additionally, providers also handle data encryption, security updates, and physical security of the data centers. These robust security measures create a strong foundation that businesses can leverage without having to replicate the same level of investments themselves. The security provided by cloud providers is constantly monitored and updated to address emerging threats. Businesses can focus on their core operations, knowing that their data and systems are protected by the cloud provider's specialized security teams and technologies, leading us to understanding that the difference again between the analogy we just spoke of the physical presence and the networking itself. So depending on your model, the infrastructure will be owned by the cloud provider or be owned by the tenant themselves. So if you're running infrastructure as code, you're responsible for it. If you're running a platform as a service, there's a shared responsibility that the underlying infrastructure will be managed by the cloud provider. Where if you're running software as a service, then you're just responsible for the components, the data, and the users who are accessing the system, and the provider themselves are responsible for the data that's hosted in the infrastructure underneath that software as a service. Now let's dive into your business's security responsibility. As an organization, you have important security responsibilities when using cloud services. The first is access management. Access management is critical. You need a robust user controls, appropriate authentication, and strong password policies to maintain the integrity of your part of the organization. You must have configuration and monitoring. Consider setting up secure configuration settings based on your risk tolerance, monitoring and control data sharing, and determine when additional security tools are needed. By properly putting configuration and monitoring in place, you'll understand if there's a drift in your tooling, your configurations, and be able to properly manage the infrastructure in which you're deploying. Additionally, we have to protect our people and our processes. By protecting employees' account credentials, you're providing comprehensive security. This can be through security training and developing internal security protocols, which are key responsibilities of your security team. So while cloud providers handle the infrastructure security, you, myself included, are responsible for how you use the cloud and protect the data that you store within it. These security responsibilities require ongoing attention. It's not a set and forget, and resource allocation from your organization. So make sure you're taking time to properly align IT and security resources with inside the environments that you're configured directly inside of the cloud, or if you're leveraging third-party services that are software as a service, to make sure that you have the proper access management, configuration and monitoring, and that you're securing your people by training them on how to access, store data, and share information, and that you have processes in place that are auditable and that you can ensure the integrity of your environment and prevent potential data leakage. So now let's take a few moments to discuss what it would take to implement security measures. We'll start by conducting a comprehensive assessment of our current security posture to identify strengths, weaknesses, and critical vulnerabilities that need immediate attention. Based on the assessment, we'll develop a detailed remediation plan that prioritizes the identified vulnerabilities. This could be from your scanners, from researchers, from the security bulletins that you get from your vendors or the cloud themselves, to allow you to properly allocate resources with clearly defined timelines for implementation. Next, we'll want to ensure we have a strong governance. So to ensure security measures are effectively integrated into our business process, will need to establish a cross-functional security governance team. Their responsibility is there to oversee, create policy, and help align the security with the key performance indicators and other business objectives within inside of your organization, which leads to having communication channels. Effective communication channels will be created to ensure security information flows transparently with inside of your organization. You want to make sure that you have common language in place and that you have an understanding of the resources needed when communicating to your individual contributors, to your fellow peer leaders, as you move up the chain to security leadership and eventually your board of advisors, while enabling timely response to the emerging threats. None of us want to see our company on the front page of the news. So remember, successful implementation requires both technical expertise and organizational commitment. Security measures must be seamlessly integrated into our day-to-day operations and not treated as separate initiatives. So again, make sure that you start with an assessment. Then document your remediation plan by having proper governance, as you may have to comply with ISO 27001, a SOC 2 Type 2, GDPR, or other regulatory requirements. So make sure that your governance team understands the requirements and that you're running proper audits on your environment. And finally, communication. As we all know, communication is key. So what do you do if you get locked out of your house? You talk to the lock because communication is key. So with effective communication, you and I can properly implement the security measures we need to help mitigate future risk to our organizations. So, two of my favorite terms, authentication and access management. Both are critical components of a strong security strategy that enables a robust mindset to protect your organization. So, let's start with enabling security defaults. This is turning on Entra ID, Okta, Ping, or other identity providers to establish a baseline protection for your organization. Next, we want to implement multi-factor authentication, MFA, by using an authenticator app, as it's in a highly effective way to prevent compromise attacks. As you are likely aware of, the use of SMS or just using username and passwords are easy to compromise. Deploy MFA through a phased rollout approach, which will help reduce the impact on your IT team and help ensure a smooth transition for your organization. Next, implement role-based access control, formerly known or currently known as RBAC, which aligns access privileges with job functions, allowing you to follow the principle of least privilege, which states your users should have access to everything they need to do their job and nothing more. You heard me right. Everything they need to do their job and nothing more. This is important in the cloud, as you do not want to overprivilege and give out admin rights, read-write access with inside the environment, as you may be opening up unnecessary risks to your organization. So, we must clearly document roles and responsibilities, thus creating transparency and accountability around access management. By using these security measures and how they work together, it will provide a first line of defense against unauthorized access to your systems and your data. So a challenge here, go audit your accounts today. Determine if Fleeta still has the rights from when he was an individual contributor. Check to see if Molly still has her project management rights even though she's now in finance. And most importantly, please make sure that you are revoking, terminating employee accounts inside of your cloud environments, both inside of Microsoft, Azure, GCP, but also within inside of the software as a service platforms, Salesforce, Confluence, Tableau, and many others to properly secure your environment. Next, let's talk about the importance of data protection via configurations. We must conduct a thorough inventory of our assets, both software and hardware, and make sure that we're evaluating all the information that we have on those assets across all platforms, as this is a critical first step in effective data prevention. We need to understand and be able to identify and classify the different type of sensitive data, such as PI, personal identifiable information, any financial records we have captured, any IP, intellectual property that we have in our environment, as well as any confidential data or information about our clients, vendors, or other sensitive information within inside of the environment. Thus, we need to have sensitivity labeling. We need to create a hierarchical system of labels that aligns with our business requirements, as it is key to ensuring that the right level of protection for each type of data exists within inside of our environment. If possible, implement auto-labeling. By implementing policies to automatically apply the appropriate label and sensitivity, your organization will help ensure that it's consistent and effectively implementing data protection without manual overhead. So data protection is tough. Our users create new documents all day long. They store them on their laptop, on file shares, in SharePoint, inside of the SaaS products themselves. So make sure you're training your users on how to properly assign data labeling for PI, PHI, the financial records, and that there's sensitivity labels to make sure that they're not sharing internal documents with a client through screen share or by emailing it or placing it into Teams, inappropriately disclosing the information. So, for example, if you have a restricted document or a confidential document and one of your employees is able to email it out, you just declassified that document because now that document has left your environment and you no longer have the ability to control who sees it, if it's printed, if it's uploaded, and if it's shared with a competitor or another entity. So make sure that you take data protection serious and you implement data classifications, data labeling to protect your organization today and tomorrow. Now let's dive into DLP, or data loss prevention. This is a critical technology that can help your organization protect sensitive information while helping you maintain compliance. First, let's start with built-in DLP policies with inside of Microsoft 365. They provide a strong foundation to start from. These pre-configured policies address common data protection needs. Next, you can implement custom DLP policies to address specific organizational requirements, tailoring the rules to your unique needs. Let's say you want to track the use of social security numbers or account numbers or another 6-digit or alphanumeric text. You can create custom policies to monitor the activity of that data within inside of your environment. Next, you must and need to implement DLP monitoring. It's important to apply DLP monitoring across key communications and collaboration channels like email, Teams, and SharePoint libraries to make sure you understand how your users are transmitting data, storing data, and sharing data both with their peers, with other teams, and potential third-party entities. Next, create notification templates. Your IT team and security teams must be able to know what is going on inside their environment. With well-designed notification templates, you're able to educate users when their actions trigger a DLP policy while logging that information and sending it to your IT and/or security teams. This helps turn potential violations into learning opportunities. If you're like me, it's easy to inadvertently do something. So getting a nudge from your system is better than accidentally leaking and/or declassifying your data. And it's also important from the security point of view to understand if you have a potential insider inside of your environment, either deliberate or accidental, because both are important and require care and feed to protect the organization from data loss. Overall, DLP acts as a set of guardrails, of course, to help prevent that accidental insider or an intentional exposure of sensitive data, while helping you support your compliance efforts and protecting your intellectual property. So take time today to review the built-in policies, build and develop any custom policies that align with the specific lines of businesses or your organization's R&D program. Monitor key locations. Make sure you understand what SharePoints are in use, what data is on those SharePoints, how they're sharing data inside of Teams, and create notification templates to enable your end users, i.e. employees, your peers, to understand before they accidentally leak data. So at the end of the day, DLP may be tough. It may have some false positives, but it's there to help protect your organization and make sure at the end of the day, your organization is in a position to protect itself and help enable users to have proper security hygiene. So now, let's dive into a strategy that many of you may have heard of. And if you haven't, I'd like to spend a few moments explaining what is a 3-2-1 backup strategy. It's a best practice for comprehensive data protection. First, maintain 3 copies of your data: a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary copy. 2, store 2 backups on 2 different types of media, like disk, tape, USB, even printed copies for redundancy. Next, keep at least 1 copy of your data geographically separated from your main location. This could be pushing it to a cloud provider, could be putting it in a vault, it could be backing it up and keeping it disconnected, because you do not want all 3 of your copies to be online at the same time in case of a RAID failure inside of your data center, and in the event of a ransomware attack where they're finding all of your backups and deleting them. Because at the end of the day, you want to aim for a 100% recovery rate. Your backup should allow you to fully restore your systems in the event of a disaster, either a natural disaster or a cyber attack. So again, the 3-2-1s states you should have 3 copies of your data on 2 different media types, with one of them being off-site or offline at any given time. Your ultimate goal is not a validated backup, but ultimately a validated restore. Please take time to check that you have a restoration point that is valid. You do not want to be in the middle of a DR, a disaster recovery, or a business continuity event, and you go to restore the data to find out that it's corrupt. So again, implement the 3-2-1 strategy to make sure you have 3 copies of your data on 2 different media types, with one of them being off-site and/or offline. Threat protection is important. Email remains the primary attack vector that attackers use today to target organizations, with phishing attempts becoming more and more sophisticated. So let's implement protective measures such as safe links, safe attachments, and anti-phishing protection, which can significantly reduce the risk of a successful attack through email. So let's start with safe links. This feature evaluates links at the time they are clicked, providing real-time protection against malicious websites that may initially appear legitimate. Next is Safe Attachments, which uses dynamic delivery to allow users to access emails while attachments are still being scanned, maintaining productivity while enhancing your security. And lastly, you should deploy enhanced anti-phishing protection for high-risk users like your executives and finance personnel who are frequently targeted in sophisticated phishing campaigns. These measures work together to create a robust defense against the primary attack vector organizations face today, which are email-based attacks. So if you're like me, your inbox is a mess. You have signed up for subscription notifications, you're getting vendor notifications, you're getting sales notifications, and it's easy for you to get busy. So by turning on safe links, you're helping protect your users who are getting links with inside their email. Additionally, for the talent acquisition team who are getting resumes, the safe attachment is there to help safeguard against weaponized Word documents and or PDFs. And finally, the anti-phishing protection is there to help against the new and evolving phishing techniques, from AI generated to QR codes and other phishing that are trying to hit our key executives. This could even be such things as your business email compromise, who are trying to get financial gains from your organization by targeting your controller or your accounts payable team to get them to change the routing number to wire money to a different account. So make sure you've taken a few moments today to review your threat protection setup. By enabling safe links, safe attachments, and anti-phishing, you are helping reduce the attack vector that are after your employees through email. Remember, they are not your weakest link, but the primary attack vector, as well as your best blue team member. So train your employees to see something and say something, and teach them how to engage the help desk and or the security operations center. So now let's continue with security monitoring framework. The goal of this framework is to establish effective security monitoring practices that balance security awareness with alert fatigue. The key components we'll talk about today are alert configuration, which is there to carefully calibrate notification settings to avoid overwhelming your security teams. Next is severity thresholds. This is defined clear criteria for categorizing incidents by impact and urgency. Next is escalation procedures, establishing a tiered response protocol based on the alert severity and required response times. And finally, it's the response team assignment, designating specific personnel for different types of security incidents. With effective security monitoring, it isn't just about collecting data, but transforming that data into actionable intelligence and ensuring appropriate responses within inside of your organization. Regular reviews of monitoring effectiveness help refine thresholds, reduce false positives, and ensure genuine threats are detected and responded to. So make sure your organization understands the alerts they're receiving, you're tuning them to remove false positives, you're checking and auditing the severity in which your incidents are coming in to make sure that you're properly assigning resources. By having escalation procedures, you understand what personnel is working on what alert. If you're running a tiered SOC, your tier one is triaging and escalating. If you're running tierless, you've established an incident handler or a vanguard who's responsible for the initial triage and then can work it all the way through or can hand it off to a peer. And finally, that your response team understand their assignments. And that's not just your security operations center. This also includes your SOC manager, your incident response team, and your security leadership. Because at any given time, an alert can become an incident and require you to start your incident response plan. So review your IR plans as well to make sure that they align with what you're setting up as part of your security monitoring framework. So ongoing security management is critical to maintain a strong security posture and security culture. So it starts with comprehensive access reviews to ensure appropriate permissions are in place. Then it's evaluating a policy effectiveness to identify and improve on opportunities within inside your organization. Next, it's verifying compliance with regulatory requirements. As things change, it's important to see what's new with ISO, GDPR, SOC, SOX, PCI DSS, and make sure that your organization is prepared to respond to these changes in tooling and or policies and procedures. Next, review your security metrics to ensure that you're properly managing your organization and seeing program effectiveness and where resources need to be reassigned. Beyond these, we have to have comprehensive training program. It's important that it includes new employee orientation, department specific training, and regular phishing simulations or exercises to help strengthen your organization. This helps strengthens your employees to be your strongest member, your best blue team, as they are the primary attack vector. Security is not a one-time implementation, but an ongoing process. It requires constant attention and resources. Take time to establish a regular cadence of security activities. You and I, can maintain vigilance without overwhelming our staff. So now let's look ahead. The key focus of this part of the presentation is looking ahead and the ongoing nature of our security efforts. We must maintain constant vigilance over our security posture and make sure that monitoring is in place for the emerging threats, as it is critical to identify and address in a timely manner. You and I need to regularly adapt our security controls as the threat landscape and business needs evolve. The size we are today requires us to have different security controls than we are during a merger and acquisition, as the organization grows and gets new clients, and as we add new products and services to our portfolios. We have to continuously refine the monitoring capabilities, thus allowing us to identify threats faster and quicker. This could be through emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence or new cloud security posture management tools or other tooling that we can turn on, as well as training for our security analysts, engineers, to make sure that they're ready to respond. Thus, we must develop effective incident response protocols. It's key to practice our incident response plans by running tabletops to enhance our ability to respond to and recover from security incidents. The goal is resilience, rather than trying to achieve the impossible goal of preventing all incidents. Security is an ongoing journey, not a destination. As technology and threats change, your proactive measures must also evolve. So, as always, continue to challenge yourself to adapt your security, to remind yourself it's not a sprint, but a marathon. So, as we conclude, I have three takeaways for us today. The shared responsibility model is critical for effective cloud security. It clearly defines what security duties belong to the provider and which belong to the organization. Security is an ongoing process, not a one-time task. Regular assessments and continuous improvement are needed to keep up with evolving threats. Effective security requires active engagement from all stakeholders, from leadership to your frontline employees. When everyone understands their role, security becomes part of the organization's culture. So, in conclusion, implementing the shared responsibility model, maintaining a program of ongoing assessment and improvement, and fostering a culture of security awareness are all essential for a robust cloud security program. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. I have had a pleasure of having a long career, both in IT and security, and I love sharing information like this with you. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe. Check out my daily shorts, where I post similar information to help you take bite-sized micro learning of what's going on with inside of cybersecurity. So until then, I hope each and every one of you has a great day. And remember, stay safe and stay secure.